Okay, this image then I'm going to right away convert this to CMYK. Actually, let me go to image size and see what we're working with. Okay, decent. Just bring it up to 300 then. Okay, so it got smaller in width and height, but it's at the print resolution we're looking for. Under image mode, CMYK is going to convert it really quick. I'm going to hit undo, redo. It looks fine. So the next thing I'm going to do, I know that this is 4.5 by 4.5-ish. I'm going to go into the shark image and then go to image size here. This is quite a bit bigger right now, but it's at 72. But when I bring it down through increasing the resolution, it's going to be 2 by 1.5. Let me see how that works. This is originally an RGB too, right? So if I double click this background layer to unlock it and then drag this over into a CMYK image panel here, this is actually going to convert to CMYK automatically. It's just going to drop into whatever color mode I popped it into. So that's that piece there. The next thing I'm going to do with this shark, I already have the composition in my head, whether or not I've sketched it or not. I already know what I'm going for. So I'm going to actually hit Command T, and then that's going to bring me my transform tool, where I'm actually going to kind of rotate this around. And so I'm looking at the background landscape. I just kind of want to line it up with that orientation that I have, because just subtly my waves need to kind of align with what is happening in the image. Okay, and I'll just bring them down a little bit there, and then I'll hit return on that. So that's going to stay. I'll call this shark. Okay, just renaming my layer by double clicking the text here in my thumbnails and just typing in whatever I want that layer to be. So the next thing I would do is actually tweak the color on this shark image layer to kind of make the water match with the background water. Okay, so that background water is obviously a little bit more green. So I'm actually doing the destructive color editing on my shark layer under image adjustments, and I'll do selective color, and want to choose the blues here. I want to take this cyan slider and see what kind of effect that has. I want to probably take out the magenta, probably add maybe yellow, take out some cyan, probably take out black too. I'll go under the cyan's color this time as well. I'm going to keep that cyan color up. I'm going to pull some more magenta. Yeah, let's see. Maybe increase the yellow, pull some black. So my goal is to get it as close to the background tone as possible. So it goes from kind of really darker blue when I'm turning the preview on and off to sort of a closer tones there. I'll go back to the blue and see if I can get it a little bit closer without getting too off. So I'm just tweaking these a little bit here and there. That's close enough. All right, so just hitting OK on that. So that's a permanent change, right? So that's destructive color editing there. Definitely my next step is going to be to duplicate the shark layer, because in the image, my fin is actually coming out of the water, but my goal is to have the rest of the shark actually looking like he's underneath the water, so it's actually like part of the image. Okay, so last time we went over all of the selection options that you have in Photoshop here, and it's just really a judgment call based on what the best way to select this fin is, with all the tools at your disposal. We have the magnetic lasso, we have the lasso, we have the elliptical marquee tools here, if you remember. We have this magic wand tool, which I'll show you here in a little bit too. There's quite a bit here. Oh yeah, we also have the quick mask mode tool, right, where you can, in quick mask mode, actually paint what you want to select and erase what you want to deselect with your brush tools. For this piece, what I'm going to use is my pen tool, because really this is just a couple of points and paths and curves, and it's really pretty much done. So essentially I'm going to hit this Alt key on the side here in my layers panel, and I'm going to click and drag while Alt is held, and I'm going to make a copy of that which I was selecting. For this I'm just going to call it fin, because this is going to be that top layer. And I'm just going to isolate this fin out with my pen tool. So I'm just going to draw the shape of it. Oh, just pen tool it out. Here we go. And again, for pen tool, once I close my path out, I'm going to go to paths, and then my more options tab up here, I'm going to hit make selection. My feather radius, if you remember, this can kind of feather the edge, right? So go from 100% opaque to 0% opaque in what's here as 3 pixels. So I'm going to say 0 pixels because I want to have it be as sharp of an edge as possible in my cut. And then on the fin layer, I can either go to select and inverse. Otherwise, I can keyboard shortcut with Command-Shift-I and then just delete. So it deleted, but nothing was visibly deleted on the screen. That's because the fin is isolated on its own layer here in my layers panel, and then my full shark background is on a separate layer. So that's really the goal there. So I'll just let that fin kind of hang out for a minute. Let's see, my next step really is to further work on blending this thing. So the shark layer, I'm going to use my not object layer options, my layer blending modes here. So with the layer selected, my layer blending modes are under this drop down. And back when I started this demo, I just kind of went through and clicked to see which one gave me the result. You know, it's kind of more on the art side than the science side at this point. But I found that luminosity gave me the closest kind of blend between this shark layer and the background. Now, still, obviously, it has, you know, it still needs work, but you're pretty close there at that point. So luminosity's done. Another piece to keep in mind is that fin layer is still solid, right? 'Cause in my image, it's above water. So turning it on and off, it kind of subtly falls back in, potentially kind of underwater if I didn't have that turned on. So just to keep it more into context, I'll have that fin layer just resting on the very top. My next step really is to hit the E button on my keyboard, and with my left and right brackets, I'm increasing and decreasing the width of my erase. So E for eraser, I'm able to click and just get rid of some of this extra stuff, you know. And I have this at a 30% opacity, so I can kind of go up and down here with it if I want it to be more intense or less intense. So I'll just bring it to like 15 for now, just so I can get close enough. I'm, you know, to blending it pretty decently. Now, when it gets down here towards this harder edge, right here on the bottom, that's where I'm going to increase my opacity to kind of get rid of more with fewer clicks, just to keep things moving along faster. Another thing too, you know, that I'm seeing in the image is the ripple of the waves is a little softer here than it is in actually the ripples of the background image with the diver. There's just other kind of little detail things to sort of look out for, you know. All right. So that's that. Blended that in using a couple different ways, right? We edited the color in our destructive color editing way with the cyans and the blues on that shark. We changed the layer blending mode of it as well to go into the background, and then we used our eraser to kind of finishing touch it to kind of blend it in a bit more. That was kind of our process there. Another thing we would want to do is, I'll unlock this legs background layer here, is cut these legs out. This is where I'll use the magic wand tool and explain it a little bit. I'm sure some of you have used this before, if not maybe all of you, but essentially I can adjust the tolerance of the wand here, and the wand basically, depending on the layer that I have selected, which is the legs right now, I'll turn off the other layers for a second just so we can focus in on that, is when I click on this area, it's going to select the pixel at which I was targeting, and it's going to, based on the tolerance, group together my selection with similar pixels based on tolerance. Okay, so with a 20 tolerance here, when I click on this this area here, I'm going to get very few pixels. Okay, but if I click on, I'll hit Command D just to deselect. If I raise this tolerance to like 80, and then click on generally the same area, it pretty much actually selects the whole entire leg. So it broadens the scope of the relationship of the surrounding pixels to the original pixel that I selected. Okay. Now, same for instance for this blue, right? If I select this blue area, wow, that's selected a lot. At 80, it's going to even take some of the sky here. So I have some of the sky selected, but none of the leg really, none of the fin here. And I can show you by turning this quick mask mode on or off to show you whatever's pink here is actually selected when I turn it on. Okay, so I'll turn it off to show it maybe a little easier. Again, if I go to 20% tolerance and click that light blue area, now it's going to get just this piece of it here. So just reduce the tolerance at which the original pixel I select will blend to the other pixels around it. It's one of the benefits of that raster-based graphic art there. So with those other layers turned on and the legs layer selected, then it's not even called the legs layer, but that's okay. Going to get my wand tool again and select the leg. I don't have enough, so I'm going to go up to 80 and then actually hit shift click. So again, if I want to add to a selection, I can shift click any, use shift click for any selection tool to just add to the previous selection. So I can use this magic wand tool to select the leg, and let's say I wanted to select another piece, for instance, like this background part. I can select another tool, like this lasso here, and hold shift and then start selecting stuff, and then that's going to add to it. So you can see in the quick mask mode that, merging two selections into one. Selecting is one of the more important aspects of Photoshop, being able to select, and then essentially, yeah, that's like the big takeaway for the software in general. So let me see. In my quick mask mode, I have some areas here that are maybe not so selected, right? So I can take my brush in this quick mask mode, and I'll take my opacity up to 100%. And then not having to hold shift in this mode, I can just kind of draw what I want to be selected in addition to. some of this water here got inadvertently selected too. So not with brush, but with eraser in this mode, you can actually deselect now, and I'll bring my opacity up. You can deselect now what has been selected inadvertently to refine that sketch. So for your illustrators that are really used to working on Wacom tablets and everything else like that, it's a more natural, way of working as well. The only next best thing would be to draw directly on the screen, but that could help you too. This quick mask mode and selecting. Basically, once I have that done, I'm going to click on my shark layer, and my goal really is to get rid of this box piece here that's over the leg. So just quick delete, and then it's done. Next thing I need to demonstrate is just a really simple brush, because let me just go ahead. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Okay. For some reason my interface, there we go. So adding a new layer, this is going to be where the gore is going to be. And really simply, after doing this a couple times, I know exactly what color I need to pick for my brush. So I'm going here into this foreground color, double-clicking it to pop open this menu that we were looking at earlier. And I'm just going to put in my CMYK conversion for the color I need in the water. Okay, so I'll just hit OK for that. So this layer, then, I'm going to select a brush. Where's the brush? You can select this with V as well. But again, just like all the other tools, you're going to have all your options up here at the top. And what I'm going to do is click this option here. It just shows a preview of your brush stroke there. And you have all these different the menu changes over time, the way it looks and so on, but you can open and close these panels now to see different brushes that you might want to use in the software and so on and so forth. You can also go over here, and then you can even get more brushes with by importing them, or so on and so forth. I'm really just going to use something kind of chalky, I think. Let me try this one. And by doing that, I lost my color, so let me get that back. 18. And so on that layer, then, I'm just going to kind of, not too carefully, because I have more work to do on it, but just kind of lay the color there, how I'm envisioning, like that. And then so part of the illusion essentially would be to duplicate this layer that I just created. So again, option click and dragging in my thumbnails on the side, and actually adding a blur to this layer here. So I'm just calling it blur, and I'm just going to go under filter and then blur to Gaussian blur. This is the same kind of, just basically the same effect we used in our other composition last time. So I'm really adding a lot of blur to it just to get like that subtle kind of cloud in the water. So, and then OK. Then I'm gonna leave the opacity to that. But for this gore layer, then my next move was to actually blend this But first I needed to show you the smudge tool. So the smudge tool here has this finger, basically. It's just a smudging finger on the side. But you can adjust the strength for this too. I'm not sure if I demoed this last time, but um, left and right brackets doing the same thing, right? Just making this smaller or larger. The strength is 75%, and really I just want to like pull some of this stuff to kind of make it blend in a little more. And maybe it's too strong, so I'm gonna put 30% up here just to. And the less strength you have on it, the less it's gonna pull. Okay. And then just a couple. Keep typing the. Okay. All right. And then so this, let's say I'm good there. So for this piece then, I'm going to change the layer blending mode again on that. And after a bunch of experimenting, I was like, no, maybe the multiply is okay. So I changed it to multiply, and I think I'm going to actually like bring it down a little bit in opacity. Like maybe that. And that. So let's see, what else is I going to do? Now for this point, I'm probably going to want to, was that multiply? Yeah. So at this point, I'm probably going to want to close these out and then again retrace this leg because some of this overlapping here kind of blends in, too much with the background. So I want to add to the depth a little bit more. So with the wand tool, again, I would just deselect, change my tolerance to 50. Let me deselect that. And it's not really selecting the way I'm. Well, I'll change my method there. I'll actually just pen tool trace this part here. Now my background doesn't really come that far up, so I'm just tracing this part of the leg. And really my purpose for this is to kind of create a sort of like a jigsaw, if you will. This is the same process as earlier, just pen tool and under paths, creating a selection with it. But what I'm doing is selecting an area to then use as a jigsaw for my eraser when I come in with the eraser and start erasing other layers to create more of that depth. So under paths then, again, make selection. This time, since I already have a selection, I'm going to add to it with that option, so add to selection. Turning the other layers on then, I'm just going to look at the edge here, and so I know what I have selected is the leg piece. So what I'll want to do is actually take my eraser, and what I could do is actually, well, I could do one of two things. Well, first what I'm going to have to do is actually select my inverse. So I'll invert the selection of the legs, so now everything but the legs are selected, right? Oop. So everything but my legs are selected, and under this top layer then I'm going to start removing is my computer lagging? I think it is. I have something invisible selected. What? I think I need a restart. Shoot. Let me save this and then see if I can restart it quick. Snorkeler. I'm going to shut this off and then turn it back on. Alright, let me try this again. Okay. Yeah, let me try it again. I'll see if I can select it a little faster. There we go. Alright, yeah, so selecting the inverse then of those legs, and then just taking the eraser tool and just getting rid of some of it in the back there. And actually maybe even just doing like a smudge to that too will help in creating some level of depth around, so it doesn't look as one-dimensional as it did before. So kind of a before and after helps it just a little bit. I think it could use more, but I think you get the idea. Even on the legs itself, like I could add some burn to the legs to kind of give more depth. So, and that's another tool I need to kind of show you. With the burn tool, it's kind of going to darken pixels without like making them black. So any pixel that is like green or whatever, the burn tool, based on what percent of intensity you give it, will with every click make it a couple steps darker in that green that you started with. So for example, I'll have these legs selected, and under my burn tool here, it's this little hand, you could actually darken areas of a leg, so you can like kind of make a shadow like that. Typically what I'll do, I don't want to do that. No. Actually, let me see something